My name is Vicent. I'm the manager at the Building Standards Office at the California Energy Commission. So I have the privilege of overseeing the team that's responsible for updating the energy code in California. And with that, also updating and maintaining CBEX, the performance compliance software, and also leading our outreach and education efforts on the energy code. So I'll start by diving in what was done for the 2022 energy code. But maybe at a quicker pace, I'll go through some of the history. I know many of you know this stuff, worth reiterating. That the Warren-Alquist Act is really the sort of driving statute that gives the California Energy Commission authority to update and adopt the energy code. So this was in the 1970s as a response to the energy crisis. And our data shows that over many code cycles since then, the building standards with the appliance standards together have reduced per capita energy consumption when compared to the rest of the US by 30% or so. So that's a statistic you probably already heard and gets thrown around a lot. But I think it's really important also to mention here as a backdrop that California's energy code must be cost effective and feasible. And a really exciting part is, with all the analysis happening statewide, and you saw some good slides on the previous presenter about buildings being a main contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, that a lot of statewide analysis indicate that there is a need to drastically reduce fossil fuels in buildings for us to meet California's building decarbonization and climate action goals, which means that we have to decarbonize buildings. That's not really a question. It's not really an option. And I hope, I suspect that I'm preaching to the choir here on that piece. That image on the right is our new building, the new headquarters building in downtown Sacramento. But it was nice to share that it is a LEED Platinum net zero building. A lot of change. So yes, the California Energy Commission does have that authority to update and adopt the energy code, but the codes and standards networks, all the people that put in elbow grease and muscle into every update is a very broad team of many agencies of which we interact with. Not only the Housing and Community Development Agency, which this group should know fairly well, CARB, DGS, and many others, along with our sister agency, the Public Utilities Commission. And it doesn't stop there. So obviously the codes and standards networks include BayREN and 3CREN and the many of the utilities that are probably in the call today. It's a really, really big network I call family or tribe. And I really mean it when I say it, that it's a labor of love for many people to update the energy code. So to adopt the 2022 energy code, we went through a very extensive process, as again, many of you know some of this stuff, is the 2022 energy code started with discussions and analysis, probably as far back as 2018 or 19, and really goes through a vetted public process that includes a rulemaking process in alignment with the Office of Administrative Law. So that means including a 45-day public comment period, a 15-day public comment period, and it ultimately culminates with the Energy Commission adoption, which happened in August. And then right now, our next step is to take this package to the Building Standards Commission for approval and admittance into the Title 24, California Building Standards Code. So we are almost there. We've got one more major milestone, which is happening in December. Hope you'll all be there in support for a code that would come into effect January 1st, 2023. So some of the highlights of the 2022 Energy Code, and I'll just touch this super high level and then go into detail, is definitely around heat pump baselines. So heat pumps continue to be sort of the star of building decarbonization. I like to say it's not the sexiest topic, but it really does matter. Solar and storage provisions in the energy code have been broadened, not just for low-rise residential anymore. We are starting to move into the non-residential and high-rise multifamily space with solar and storage baselines. Electric ready requirements were put into the 2022 Energy Code for low-rise residential and some electric ready requirements for multifamily as well. Lighting continues to be a topic of importance. We've done some multifamily restructuring of the code to make it easier for those projects to identify that code language in one central place, and then have made some advancements with our ventilation requirements, which I'll talk about as well. So that's that. In less than 1 minute, that's what was in there. But let's dive in to what was updated or adopted in the 2022 Energy Code. As many of you locals are pursuing, electric, water, and space heating heat pumps are central. And there's a reason for that. It's not just because they reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but they're also inherently energy efficiency. So they're, as you've seen, up to or more than 3 times the efficient than a tankless water heater may be. But they also encourage some level of load flexibility, being tanked systems. So they're just an all-around slam dunk win. If we can get the market to absorb as many of these as we can. Notwithstanding, electric water heating and space heating are, at least from our analysis, roughly 2/3 of the GHG pie for buildings. So really targeting that technology is going to be an ongoing theme for the Energy Code. And in the latest Energy Code, what we've done is made water or space heating standard. Standard means that it's not required, but it is the default baseline. So if you want to do nothing else, then you will either have an electric, space, or water heater. These can be traded off if you do more energy efficiency, but the standard, the baseline now, is an electric, space, or water heater. We hope that this will build some level of market traction along with all of your efforts to get the number of space and water heaters in homes and businesses drastically up. Similarly, in multifamily, space heating is a standard. And on the commercial side, we try to identify some commercial applications that heat pumps were cost effective, or that we could prove heat pumps were cost effective. And that includes schools. So schools will have space and water heating as standard heat pumps. Offices, either or, banks, either or, libraries, retail, and grocery. So big focus on heat pumps in the 2022 update. In addition to that, even though heat pumps do get a lot of the publicity and fame nowadays, from a environmental life cycle perspective, solar and battery, from our analysis, is equally important as heat pumps, maybe if not more, because the time that you use energy is becoming as, if not more important than how much energy you use. Based on that, our 2022 Energy Code update now has solar and battery as a standard. These are minimal size systems for select commercial buildings, which are listed here. So multifamily, high-rise multifamily, hotel, motel, office, retail, and several others. It's key here to reiterate that these standard designs, solar plus battery, are sized modestly. We're hyper aware that there's a lot of discussions happening at the state revisiting the compensation rates for net energy metering. And our analysis assumes small sizes of these systems, and also assumes the most conservative outcomes being discussed with net energy metering to ensure that these systems, solar and battery, remain cost effective for these project types. Another big win for the 2022 Energy Code is having dedicated electrical circuits in single family and multifamily. So here you can see that we are requiring space heating, cooking, clothes drying, and water heating to have dedicated electrical infrastructure to make replacing gas appliances to electric much easier in the future. This also includes some level of energy storage system ready requirements for single family, including a minimum electric panel size. And to round that out, knowing is much that ventilation and cooking and indoor air quality continue to be as important as building decarbonization, or entangled with it. For the first time, the California's energy code does have different provisions for electric cooking versus gas cooking. And we did this by creating a metric in the code called capture efficiency. That basically means you'll have to provide more ventilation for natural gas cooktops. Now, as a whole, we've estimated that there are some significant environmental and consumer benefits to the code, and we have to do this actually every standards update. Here's sort of a high-level summary of how those measures are broken up and how much they contribute to the environment. So we're looking by our estimates conservatively that this package will save 10 million metric tons of emissions, metric tons of CO2, and sorry, not 10 million, yeah, 10 million, and have an emissions environmental benefit of 1.6 billion. So these are big numbers. Now, on the REACH code side, we also recognize that locals really are paving the path and trailblazing where we go with building decarbonization. We don't expect that to stop. In fact, we're seeing that that's increasingly true. So for 2020, the 2016 code cycle, we've done some trending of sorts to see who's doing what with REACH codes. These are all based on REACH codes that the Energy Commission sees. Just a caveat there. We do review all energy efficiency REACH codes, but not necessarily REACH codes that are police powers or health and safety related. And so in the 2016 code cycle, we saw the focus being really around energy efficiency. So you can see there was 17 REACH codes, solar being the next big one, and electric vehicles REACH codes being a small third. But you can see in 2019 how things have changed drastically, topically, from being about energy efficiency now to being about all electric or electric preferred. To our knowledge, and our data shows that there's 26 adopted REACH codes with some level of all electric requirement. This doesn't specify which building type, just some level of all electric requirement. While an additional 22 I have pursued and adopted electric preferred REACH codes, and there's still a smattering of energy efficiency, PV, and EVs in there. But this is really important because this helps inform the energy code to say, okay, well, this is great. This is where the energy code needs to focus, which is why we landed so squarely on heat pumps and are thinking about what to do with EVs. And obviously, we have been and continue to do more on solar. For the 2022 Energy Code, the California Energy Commission also has authority to update and adopt CalGreen provisions, at least the energy efficiency provisions, although we know that there's a much broader constituency involved with updating that. The Energy Commission is responsible for the energy efficiency provisions. For 2022, it is another sort of lean and mean proposal that we're going for. It's squarely focused on single family, but where we're going is to try to come up with a proposal that standardizes building decarbonization around single family. So we are basically pursuing voluntary provisions that would require heat pump, space heating, and water heating in single family. There is a bit of a upfront requirement to select 2 prerequisite options, but then also, here's how let me go back. Here's how we're getting at the electric heat pump, space, and water heating for single family. We're setting compliance margins or targets for hourly source energy by climate zone. so that any local who wants to adopt this can say, hey, you can meet this code in any vast number of ways, but you still have to meet this compliance margin, which would result in very likely electric heat pump space and water heating. The reason that we have to go around, not go around, but we've got to set targets in this way rather than outright banning, is again, we are a building energy efficiency standard. We don't have the authority or ability to say you should or should not use this type of fuel. But we believe this methodology respects that boundary while pushing the market towards heat pumps and keeping codes cost effective. So where we're going with this overall, as I just was going to close with this slide, is we're all very familiar with the success stories of residential solar. I know a lot of that is in contention and being talked about with CPUC and at the state level. But you can see the state tracks really great data on solar. And since 2007, the installed capacity for solar has just skyrocketed in California. And thereby the cost to install that solar has been going down on a dollar per watt basis. So we're trying to think about heat pumps in the same way. I mean, this could very well be the story of heat pumps, recognizing that first upfront, there needs to be some large market subsidies to help move the market on heat pumps until eventually trailblazers like yourselves will adopt some level of ordinance or code that says, hey, you've got to install this stuff. And once there's enough market traction, then I think the California Energy Commission will be emboldened to follow suit and just say, yes, this is cost effective for all buildings or building types, just like we did for the 2019 low-rise residential solar requirement. So we're basically trying to take a page out of the Res PV playbook. And last, I'll just end with the slide saying that we do recognize that the energy codes are important but complex, and we have a survey out right now until December 3rd, asking for feedback on what the Energy Commission can do to make the codes better and what types of resources we can provide to support the overall network and help decarbonize our economy. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Well, we do have time for maybe a couple of questions. So first is the Marin County statistics that I'm assuming Brian presented in reference to. So the Marin County statistics appear to say that electric preferred codes only lead to all electric buildings in 38% of cases. Does the CEC forecast a percentage of all electric buildings resulting from the electric baseline on either or just one of space heat or water heat?
That's an excellent question that I'm dying to know, but we don't know that yet. The way to go about it would be definitely the way that the last presenter went about it, pulling some CalCerts and Cheers data to get a sense. Yeah.
Oh, here's another one. Does the prescriptive requirement for batteries also say anything about that they must be islandable? I don't think that is presumed in all battery storage systems when they get interconnected.
Correct. There's no provisions in there that says it has to be islandable. Right. Great.
Are there any incentives for using/installing heat pumps with the lowest possible GWP for its heat transfer medium? For example, CO2 versus HFCs.
I'd probably defer that question to all the other, the brain trust on this call. I'm sure there's utilities and others on here who probably do have incentives. I used to be sharp on that stuff when I was working at Southern California Edison, but I recognize I'm outdated now.
I think we have time for one more. This is a good one. The equipment cost for heat pumps is close to reasonable. Oh, it just went away. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, I think that basically the question was the equipment costs for heat pumps are good, but the labor and install is costly. Does the is the CEC aware of that or doing anything around that?
Yes, we recognize that as a massive next challenge. So our first step was, hey, let's work on getting this in code, which we adopted, and we feel like it will be there for January 1st, 2023. We are planning on spending a lot of focus on getting at that key demographic, which are installers and distributors, and trying to educate them as much as possible about the benefits here. But we certainly will need all the help we can get. Again, I think the utilities and others will have, if they don't already, have programs to start educating this part of the market, and also coupling it with some level of incentives, because that's been identified by a number of different groups, including ourselves, as a real critical point for movement.